Welcome to Ultimate Orlando Clicks. I'm your host Kevin. We are starting at the 24-hour Disney party. This is the Rock Your Disney side party held this last Friday at the Magic Kingdom. As you can see, in addition to the banners out front, they've got these heroes and villains theme going on, both with the signage as well as what we're going to see later in terms of characters. Now, the Disney side sort of promotion is really their Disney term for what has previously been called Disney bounding, where you're dressing up as a character, not necessarily using a costume so much as using everyday clothes to look like a Disney character. So in this case, sometimes people took the idea and made actual costumes out of them. In other cases, though, they just wore clothes that looked somewhat similar. And people use the occasion to almost kind of go in directions they wouldn't otherwise do. So there was some cross-dressing going on here, for instance. And there's a lot of a homemade costume out of this one. Another cross-dressing person here for Maleficent. Now, this happens to be Stephen Miller. He's one of the figures in the Disney merchandising universe who's dressed up as the Orange Bird. But this is an example of what the Disney bounding looks like. You're not trying to be the Orange Bird so much as have your clothes look like the Orange Bird. Now, at the Disney side event, they had this Cinderella chariot out, this Cinderella carriage out that you can take photos with. It was there throughout the night in the 24-hour. It's where I first ran into the Olaf souvenir cup. It was perhaps on sale before that and then afterwards as well, but it's when I saw it. They have banners set up in a couple of places throughout, as well as signage pointing you toward Tomorrowland Circus, Tomorrowland, that sort of thing. And since it was a busy evening, they did have long lines for things. Now, this long line for 300 minutes is specifically for characters you don't normally get to see. The villains are not normally at Princess Fairy Tale Hall, but the Queen and Maleficent were there for this particular occasion. Now, the Incredible Super Dance Party is normally here on this stage. What's not normally here is the movie The Incredibles itself, which came on after 10 p.m. and just kept repeating over and over again. So people were kind of camped out on that little carpet there watching the movie, or near to that, recording what time it was by using their arms as the gauge, the hands of that clock. Here's what the clock looks like with no one there. Now, jumping around a little bit in terms of the day, it's daylight again now. Tinkerbell was newly moved from her magical nook spot here in Adventureland over to Town Square. And so you see the new banner for her over on the side here, as well as her wait time, which is only 15 minutes on this particular afternoon. Although once you come back a little bit later, in this case it was up to 35 minutes. She's got her own banner there as well. And in the last part of that sort of richly decorated corridor, we've got red carpet and the gold walls. She's got a couple of paintings that are unique to Tinkerbell. Now, this is a wall that wasn't there before, actually. The wall back here had another door, which is where you would go in to meet the former home of the princesses. This wall is here to separate the standby line, which is where we're standing, from the Fast Pass line, which could go around the back side of the wall and come in from the other angle. Now, when you go into the door where Tinkerbell will be kept, you see some of these twinkle lights here, and what it is a setup to that magical zone where you're shrinking in size. So these are the areas where we become the size of Tinkerbell, and then we go into one of two magical doors that has all this sparkling show and so forth before the door we're going to go through ends up actually opening up. And then once we go through, then we're in the meet and greet room where Tinkerbell herself will be. And you can see it's got some of the same designs, large oversized props, big pieces of plants, and in some cases bark like a tree, oversized props as though we're really small, because that's where we are at this point, is shrunk down to the Tinkerbell size. And all this 4 different walls covered with this kind of decoration as though we're small like Tinkerbell herself. You get a chance to meet with Tinkerbell, take some photos with PhotoPass, and then it's out the door from there and back into the real world. Now, at the candy shop and a few other places on the 24-hour event, they had the Rock Your Disney side sign up next to Orange Bird candy apples, and here's what they look like. Nearby were Maleficent-looking candy apples as well as these cupcakes specifically for the heroes and villains. That was the main theme of the 24-hour event. And so they had a pre-parade of a couple of different floats and some walk-around characters that you don't normally get to see. Anastasia and Drusilla and Lady Tremaine, Big Bad Wolf, Judge Claude Frollo, Stromboli are the walk-around characters that you see here in advance of this first parade. And then Megara and Hades on that float, and Pain and Panic, not really pictured here, hanging out in the back there. And that's a spot Pain and Panic are always in for the Halloween parade. There's a second parade as well, second parade float. It's such characters as Cruella in the middle here, and then Oogie Boogie in the front, the Sheriff, and then the Queen of Hearts, the Bowler Hat Man, as well as Dr. Facilier from Princess and the Frog. So they do some sort of complicated dancing out in front of the float itself. And then comes the float, which has Hook and Jafar and Maleficent on it. And then on the back, the Evil Queen from Snow White. So here's what they were selling. This is a glow stick, actually, and these are the t-shirts. We'll have a closer look at those in a moment, as well as Mickey hats for $21 saying Rock Your Disney Side with a 24-hour event logo on it. And there's what that t-shirt looks like. It glows in the dark. Not all restaurants were open. Some just had these outdoor vending carts set up in front of it, but an impressive number of them were open until late in the evening. They did have some meet and greets available. That's Meg and Hades. This person is Disney bounding as Wendy, taking a PhotoPass picture. There were some DJ parties, I guess you could call them, dance parties. This was on the castle stage, and you can see that it's pretty packed, actually. This was fairly late in the night, I think around 1 or 2 o'clock at night, and the place was packed, and they were all doing a conga line. Perhaps you can see all the hands up on shoulders. And that's what the stage looks like from down below, and they even had some stilt walkers out doing the conga as well. Now, by the time the morning came, they started clearing the lands by having sort of this familiar line, this phalanx of cast members inching forward from all directions so that you can't go into the further reaches of the park. And they kind of inch you forward past maintenance. In this case, there's a maintenance person looking at the carousel, which is beginning to happen. As you can see, it's starting to turn daylight. In our case, we went out the front of the castle, had a look at Main Street, largely emptied of crowds by this point, and the sun is beginning to come up over Tomorrowland even. So that's a neat thing you don't get to see too often unless you're running the marathon, perhaps. Another thing you don't see a lot of are stores with their doors closed. So Casey's Corner doesn't usually close its doors like that, or the Emporium with its doors closed is an unusual sight, and so I had to take photos of that when I could. And then by the time we got to the parking lot, it was, of course, pretty much broad daylight, but completely empty because the day visitors hadn't started arriving just yet for the next day. And so you get to see an empty parking lot, not something you get to see very often. Returning on a next day, just getting you caught up on some other updates, they've still got some construction in Town Square here, and they're now removing these FastPass machines. Got a few photographs of new t-shirts that caught our eye. That's the Walt Disney World Railroad, which doesn't usually happen. Usually it's a Disneyland Railroad on these kinds of t-shirts. This was a somewhat new addition to the DVC booth next to Ariel's, or well, I guess Under the Sea, and this sign saying Harper Goff, and that's obviously an homage to the Imagineer Harper Goff from Walt Disney's day. This is the wider shot of the DVC area, and this sign is new. That's been added in the last couple of weeks, I think. I haven't noticed it previous to that. And then on the monorail, looking at the Polynesian, this is the last building of the Polynesian. This has been closed for some time now to traffic, and it looks like they've really done a number of removing everything back down to its bare floor here. We'll wait and see what they're going to be building here next. This caught my eye while out in the park. It's obviously an electronic convenience vehicle, ECV, a scooter, and it looks like the guest himself has built something to keep the rain out, I guess, or perhaps otherwise, maybe there was an immune disease reason to have that much shelter. But it was a complicated PVC construction, and it looked like it could handle the rain, actually. It was an interesting thing to see out in the parks. Little update on the hub construction. Here's that dam with water on both sides of it now. This area is now filled in a little bit more. In fact, they've got dirt all around here. And if you look a little bit closer, you could see that they've got a ramp down here. Now, I don't know if this is because they intend this to be a walkway under the bridge eventually, if this is going to stay filled in, or if this is just temporary while they get the earth-moving equipment here. Anybody's guess at this point. So it's time for our game. Where in Walt Disney World was this? Our question from last time was here, and it turns out this is actually from the Contemporary. So this was the formerly an arcade space, and as you're seeing it pictured here, this is what's confusing. It's not an arcade, but an eatery, the Food and Fun Center or something like that, I think it was called. It is where the current location of the Wave is now. And so this wasn't there for all that long. It's obviously completely gone now. All right, time for our next one. I won't give you any hints, as is my usual custom. You just write your comment, your guess, in the comment section below, and we'll see you next week if you guys are right. Thanks as always for stopping by, and we will catch you guys next week.